Ruan slept in the university classroom for the first second, and woke up in the center of the garbage dump the next second. Didi, the journey begins. So, she was forced to go through a silent journey to the deep-sea palace, a bloody human show tour, strange museum tour, distorted kindergarten tour. In addition to traveling, the system also requires her to complete a series of annihilation tasks. She looked at the task list and wished to eliminate herself first. Infinite flow plus upgrade flow plus growth-oriented female lead plus no CP, keywords of the novel. I am forced to become a god in the thriller Infinite Stream without pop-ups. I am forced to become a god in the thriller Infinite Stream. Download the complete TXT collection, and read the latest chapters in the thriller Infinite Stream, Forced to Become a God. Chapter 1. The Path of the Anti-Faction begins. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Path of the Anti-Faction begins. When Ruan woke up from the endless ruins, she still maintained the position of sleeping in the university classroom the previous second. She really can't figure it out. She just stole the 100th laziness in her life. Taking a nap in a water class. Why is the crime so unforgivable that it falls into the garbage dump? However, what I didn't expect was that this was just the beginning of an unforgivable crime. Ruan rubbed her eyes and found herself lying on a very clean table, which seemed to be the one she had just attended class on. There was also a textbook on top, and there was some saliva on the cover. She looked around and found herself on the only flat ground in the depression, surrounded by broken walls, cable lines, giant scrap iron, liquid, clothes, inexplicable fragments and other things spreading out, seemingly unable to see the end. Ruan just wanted to stand up, but found herself stuck to the stool and unable to move. At this moment, a shooting star fell vertically onto the book in front of Ruan, transforming into a black card. The card was written in golden font, "Hello, Ms. Yu, welcome to World 378. Please read the survival manual. At the end of the manual, there is a beautiful gift from this system for you." After reading the paper, it disappeared. Isn't it burning after reading? Ruan looked at her empty palm and had to open this book of Western philosophy, which she deeply despised, with countless questions. Welcome to World 378. Mechanical waste, immortal truth. The more you detest it, the more likely it is that it is your survival reliance. Ruan couldn't help but pinch her temples, feeling the strong malice of the world for the first time in her smooth life. This world is far beyond your imagination, and as a primitive of the old planet, you may only rely on this book for survival opportunities. The following is the survival guide, please read it carefully. Ruan flipped through this page full of nonsense. And the next page is the preface to a long and tedious theory. Pa closed the book. Also, if it were a good thing, she wouldn't travel through time and space and fall into the garbage dump. After taking a few deep breaths, Ruan decided to open the book. To the end, take a look at the exquisite gift. But I didn't expect that when I opened it, it would be her personal information. Name: Ruan. Gender: female. Intelligence: 6 out of 10 spiritual strength. 8 out of 10 force. 2/10 explosive power. Tentative 1-star luck. Tentative 4 stars belief value. 0 skills. To be explored. Below is a large blank space. Then he flipped over to the back and found that it was still blank. So she looked at the second page, task introduction. Just as Ruan looked at a few lines, she felt a sense of darkness in front of her. Is this a task? How about treating me as if I haven't woken up? Task 1. Remove some residents. Content. Completely eliminate 0/1000000 organisms. Task 2. Restore part of the ecological environment. Content. Destroy buildings by 0/1000000. Task 3. Reduce stress and reduce biological reproduction. Content. Destruction of couples 0/10,000. Task 4. Establish an organization and increase followers. Content. 0/100000 followers are required. Task 5. Collect belief values. The task content is uncertain, and there may be side content. Please keep an eye on it. At the bottom of the paper, there is also a core task written. Please make sure to complete the continuation of faith. Content. Tentatively set to kiss creatures 0/100. For Ruan, any one of them is like a catastrophic disaster. When it comes to death, she cannot easily give up her life. But even if she can understand the previous mission of annihilation, the final core mission is probably too absurd, isn't it? What Pacific system still manages whether people kiss or not? And this font is actually pink. Also drew 2 small hearts. Isn't that too serious? Never mind, this task may not necessarily need to be completed. For such high expectations, she may not be worthy of living a few more lifetimes. She flipped over the task and looked at the last page, which read, Warm Warning. She didn't know what the relationship between warmth and warning was. Warning 1. Complete the main quest of your life, to be explored, do not commit suicide, do not commit suicide, do not commit suicide. Warning 2. Do not destroy this book at your own risk. Warning 3. Please take this world seriously. This world is not a game. Warning 4. You have only one chance to resurrect. I hope you have a smooth and happy trip. Ruan felt that looking at this book, she realized that it was becoming more profound and beyond the realm that ordinary people should touch. She closed the book and had a myriad of thoughts. Looking at the surging sunset on the horizon, with a pragmatic attitude, she decided to find a place to spend the night first. Ruan stood for a moment, swaying and having to prop up the table to slow down for too long. Let's make a vow first, we will never sleep during class again, if we still have classes. When she stood up, she realized that among the ruins, she could still see the outlines of some buildings in the distance, only sparse. But that's not important. She must have difficulty going to the city tonight and can only rest in the garbage dump. Ruan took a moment to find a suitable place to settle in the garbage dump. The more I searched, the more I realized that this place didn't seem like a garbage dump, as valuable things were everywhere. She couldn't help but come up with an idea. Is there no one in this world doing waste recycling business? Ruan decided to wait until he found a place to rest and make sure to find a time to organize his plan to become a waste recycling king. She walked around and finally found an inconspicuous row of old and useless pill-shaped devices before the sun set. According to her reading calendar, this thing looks more like a rumored hibernation pod. She reached in and touched the inside of the large pill, and it was indeed a mattress, very soft. Is the new world so wasteful? It's not bad either, Ruan muttered as she tried to lie down on her side. When she completely lay down, she realized that she could directly see the stars in the sky. Forget it, after all, it's in the garbage dump. Just find something to cover it, Ruan thought and came out of the cabin, intending to pick up some torn cloth to cover it. If she could find a needle and thread, it would be better to make a curtain. She searched for some relatively clean cloth in the nearby area and also found some glass-filled potions with the words, Great ****, Improved ****, Strong ****, written on them, feeling that they should be drinkable. While drinking, she was thinking that she might not be able to find anything to eat or have money to buy in the short term, so she planned to search nearby the next day and then hit the road. Ruan also moved some parts to cover up her whereabouts and picked up some garbage to put on these big pills, making them even more inconspicuous. At this moment, she finally covered the cloth with peace of mind and lay down on her side. Before going to bed, stuffed the remaining potions into the gaps in the bed. She didn't have time to conceive her wealth plan either. For some reason, her heart skipped a beat from the beginning, feeling that the night might not be so peaceful. Before truly falling asleep, it's better to catch some sleep first. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Daughter of the C01. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Daughter of the C01. Ruan woke up again. It was already late at night. She felt something unusual in her hand and turned her head to look at the palm of her hand. It is a shell, shining brightly, with a thin white chain and some water stains, just like it was just pulled out of the water. Ruan knows where this shell comes from. After she fell asleep, she felt like she was constantly sinking to a very deep place. In her dream, she saw a girl who gave her a shell. Suddenly, countless sounds tore open the silent night. Good evening, it's exactly midnight now. 10 friends are going to my dance party today. Good evening, it's exactly midnight now. Today, 6 friends are coming to my house as guests. Good evening, it's exactly midnight now. 8 friends are coming to the church today. It was too noisy, and Ruan couldn't hear exactly how much noise was coming. After thinking for a moment, she didn't have anything valuable or useful around her, so she held the book in her arms and took out all the potions she had searched for from the cracks in the bed, putting them into her pockets on both sides. After finishing these, she closed her eyes and began to wait. I don't know how long it took, but when she almost fell asleep again, the sound just now began to ring again. The journey begins. The mechanized male voice, with 4 straightforward words, makes people feel that it is mocking. Uro opened her eyes and found herself in the sea, lying on a flat ground, with a magnificent European-style architectural complex in front of her. She didn't see the book she brought, so she touched her pocket again and found that the medicine she had brought was also missing. She also touched the pocket on her chest, but fortunately, the shell was still there. No, why are seashells here? Before she could think it over, several footsteps appeared behind her. She withdrew the shell from her pocket and turned around to see 7 people of all shapes and sizes walking towards her from all directions. A white-haired old man wearing a sophisticated suit, 2 couples, one is a young man dressed in black and white erotic attire, and the other is like a celebrity dressed in formal attire who just got out of a party, a middle-aged woman dressed in splendid attire, a high school boy wearing a neat school uniform. It feels like an important event just ended, and it also feels like calmly putting on the most dignified clothes before death. They walked to the central area and began introducing themselves to each other. Hello, my name is Lin Cheng and she is Mingyu. We can be considered non-mainstream celebrities. She comes from Zone D and just got off the red carpet, so she looks a bit strange. Hello. I am a university professor with the surname Chiu from District D. Just call me Professor Chiu. She and I are from Zone C. You just need to protect yourself, don't worry about me, the young couple said, and looked contemptuously at the people around them. The 2 of them passed by Ruan's side and strode straight ahead. The atmosphere became particularly awkward. My name is Ruan. She doesn't know if she should mention that she lives in a garbage dump, nor does she know if it will be classified as Zone Z according to its classification. She was still hesitating when she heard the middle-aged woman say, My name is Jiang Yun, from E District. After she finished speaking, she looked at her shoes and felt very depressed. Fortunately, it seems that everyone is not interested in where she comes from. The only child came over and took Ruan's hand. Sister, my name is Ning Ning, and I really like you. The child was pure and innocent, like a junior high school student, without mentioning their origin. Alright, everyone knows each other now, let's go in. It's useless to waste time here, Lin Cheng said. Ruan joined in with everyone, but she was not sure what the situation was and didn't dare to do anything more. They walked towards the palace, while Ning Ning held onto Ruan's fingertips and obediently stayed by her side, walking at the back. Ruan looked at the people in front, none of whom were carrying backpacks, and apart from clothes, they didn't seem to be wearing any accessories, including the 2 celebrities who had just taken off the red carpet. This is strange, it seems to indicate that there are no accessories in this world, or it is impossible to bring accessories to the dungeon. So what's wrong with the shell on her chest? Is it because it's very special? Ruan reached out with the other hand to pinch the pocket. But Ning Ning on the side has been secretly watching her. After walking for a while, they saw the young couple standing at the main entrance of the hall. As they stood together at the entrance of the main hall, before anyone could speak, the doors suddenly opened inward, followed by a group of maids dressed in silk and silk. The maidservants spread out on both sides, and a woman dressed more elegantly walked out from one side. She bowed slightly to the crowd and said, "Hello distinguished guests, welcome to Lioli City to attend your Majesty's wedding." Ruan looked at the gorgeous woman and noticed that she was also looking at her. She nodded to Ruan and then said to the crowd, "Come with me." Everyone followed her towards the hall. The palace is not as luxurious as imagined, mostly built with milky white plaster, with some fine crystals twinkling on it, looking very beautiful. Ruan couldn't help but sigh, "Your Majesty looks quite discerning." The gorgeous woman led everyone to the second floor of the palace, and when she pushed open the door, a huge gathering restaurant appeared in front of everyone. "We will invite all the distinguished guests to dine here in a moment. If your Majesty is available, he will also come and accompany you to dinner." The gorgeous woman was about to leave when she turned around and said, "I and the maids will wait at the door for everyone's orders." After speaking, he left the hall with the maids. Everyone took their seats and filled one end of the dining table, with no one daring to sit near the main seat. Ruan led Ning Ning at the end of the team, so he could only choose a position close to the main seat. "Everyone, let's talk about which dungeons we have entered." Lin Cheng once again became the leader. "What's there to say to you trash?" the young man choked directly. Lin Cheng's female companion Mingyu was so angry that she pointed directly at the man's nose and said, "How could there be someone like you among the investigators? We just want to improve our survival rate." "What a fool. Survival rates are fixed, we don't have much to communicate with, we're just opponents," the young man countered with a cold face. For a moment, no one spoke anymore. Ning Ning pulled Ruan on her side and wrapped her hands around her with both hands. Ruan looked at him and saw him smiling at herself. The extremely black hair and eyes, as well as the white to red skin, resemble a BJD, both beautiful and melancholic. But Ruan didn't feel anything. In her heart, she only felt that the child was well behaved and beautiful, like a doll, which made her feel a sense of warmth. They remained silent for a long time, and after a while, there were some quiet conversations between the two couples. "Sister, can I call you Sister Ruan?" Ning Ning suddenly approached Ruan and said. "Of course." Ruan was afraid that she would behave like a child abducting fool. "Alice, why don't you wake me up when the guests arrive?" The hall door suddenly opened, and everyone turned their heads to look at the person who appeared at the door. Ruan couldn't describe how stunning the newcomer was. His curly white hair reflected a dazzling radiance, and his purple eyes were embedded in his white jade-like face, seemingly flowing with a galaxy of stars. She was wearing a moon-white dress, with her white fish tail at the hem. In an instant, she sat on the main seat of the dining table. Ruan followed her figure and was still immersed in amazement. At this moment, she finally understood why so many people in her original world were obsessed with the pursuit of mermaids. Junlin looked at everyone's gaze, with a hint of disgust flowing in his eyes, and quickly withdrew it. "All right everyone, welcome to my palace. I have called for someone to prepare the sleeping hall. After everyone finishes their meal, they can go back and rest." After Junlin finished speaking, everyone was like waking up from a big dream, whispering to one side. "Is that all? NPC doesn't assign other tasks, there may be deceit in the food, why don't we just stop eating?" Ruan looked at the mermaid not far from her and couldn't help but think of the dream she had before. Could that little girl also be a mermaid, which is why she can swim freely in the deep sea? But why don't those maids have long tails? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Daughter of the C02. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The Daughter of the C.02. Junlin held his chin in his hand and scanned the expressions of the crowd, feeling very uninteresting. Alice pushed the door open and entered, accompanied by a group of maids carrying their meals. They gradually filled the entire dining table with exquisite food. Ruan looked at the table, which was mostly filled with seafood sashimi, including tuna, salmon, and sweet shrimp that she knew, as well as a group of fish that she didn't know. But she has been allergic to seafood since childhood, and these are all things that cannot be touched. The people on the side can eat it, but they dare not eat it. Even if no defense is set up, the food in the dungeon cannot move freely. Junlin couldn't help but laugh as he looked at the crowd unwilling to move their chopsticks. Alice, bring some more wine to the distinguished guests. Yes. My wedding will only be in 6 days. If everyone doesn't want to eat the food I prepared, they will have to wait hungry. Everyone looked at each other, some hesitated and shook their chopsticks, while others ignored them. Junlin no longer looked at the crowd and picked some fish and began to eat. Alice served glasses of red wine in front of everyone, and then placed a cake in front of Ruan. It is said to be a cake, more like a dirty bag from Ruan's world, with 2 layers of bread of different sizes and a uniform black charcoal outside. Ning Ning, standing beside Ruan, pulled her hand, and when she looked at him, he drank a glass of red wine in front of him. Ruan understood and knew that it meant she could drink it, so she also took a few sips. Surprisingly, it was the taste of mulberry juice. Ning Ning ignored the thoughts of others and put some sashimi in the bowl. She also stood up and took and used knives and forks, cutting a cake for Ruan in the bowl. Ruan looked at the pitch-black cake in front of her, knowing that it was the only food she could eat tonight. Looking at Ning Ning beside her, she felt like she had been deprived of her sanity here, trusting him so much. But Ruan finds it difficult to question Ning Ning. She feels that Ning Ning is a bit like the little girl in her dream and also a bit like herself when she was a child. She put a cake in her mouth and found that besides being slightly burnt, it was quite delicious and had a unique flavor. At first, only Ms. Jiang moved her chopsticks, but later Mr. Chiu also ate less. Later, the celebrity couple ate some, and only the young couple looked at it with a cold face. Because the cake was in front of Ruan, she couldn't eat anything else, so she ate it hard. I had a great time eating with everyone and decided to hold a dance party tomorrow morning. Please be sure to attend, Junlin said before disappearing from the main seat. Ruan also had enough to eat, and led Ning Ning aside to find the so-called sleeping hall. As I passed by the young couple, I unexpectedly heard them whispering. This dungeon is so strange, it's so peaceful. Yeah, I don't know when there will be casualties. Only when there are casualties. Ruan led Ning Ning by, and when she opened the hall, she saw Alice standing by the door. May I ask how to get to the dormitory? Going up the stairs on the side, the 3rd floor is the dormitory. Everyone's dormitories have been arranged, and there are special marks on them. Just choose the corresponding one to enter, Alice replied respectfully, lowering her head. Thank you, Ruan said, and then walked up the stairs with Ning Ning. When she reached the 3rd floor, she found that the stairs were still extending upwards. She looked up and found it pitch black, with no visible edges. Ning Ning pulled her aside and said, Sister, let's go to the dormitory and have a look. Ruan gave up exploring and walked towards the first door. On the first door, 2 bones were carved, one on the left and one on the right, with red blood streaks connecting the bones, and even a shape of love was outlined in the middle. This shouldn't be her dormitory. Ruan let go of Ning Ning's hand and walked towards the 2nd door. On the 2nd door, 2 brilliant gemstones were carved, one green and one red. The green one was wrapped in soft silk, while the red one seemed to have an eye in the middle. This doesn't seem like her dormitory either. The 3rd door features a book and a pen, which are very thick and depict many abstract lines, while the pen drips blood like ink. The book should refer to that professor, it doesn't seem like her room either. She walked towards the most remote fourth door. Only one shell was painted on the fourth door. Ruan looked at the shell and couldn't help but reach into the pocket on her chest, pinching the shell. She knew she had found it, released her hand, grabbed the door handle, and with a press, the door automatically opened. As soon as I entered, there was a large room, somewhat dark, with only some of the flowing light from the corridor shining in. There is a large bed on both sides of the room, with a long bookshelf lying horizontally in the middle and 2 desk lamps placed at both ends. There is not much decoration in the entire room. Ruan walked in and faced the empty room, feeling a sense of belonging. Her original world room seemed to be like this. It's all the same, except for the white-pink walls and desk, there's no extra decoration. She suddenly remembered that her mother seemed to have told her before that there was no need to touch those useless things, they would only be a burden. She looked at the room and felt that compared to the previous room, there were only a cabinet of books missing. After all, there were only a few scattered stacks in the bookshelf. That's called a book, but in reality, it's more like several piles of discarded manuscripts that have been set together. Just as she was immersed in the past, Ning Ning, who followed her in, pulled at the corner of her clothes. "Sister Ruru, let's have a chat." Ruan woke up from his memories and turned to look at Ning Ning. He obediently looked at her as if waiting for her response. Okay. Ruan also really wants to chat with Ning Ning. She has a lot of doubts in her heart and hopes to get more clues. "Sister Ruru, when did you come here?" Ning Ning sat on the edge of the left bed, obediently looking up at her. "When did you come?" "Just 1 minute earlier than you," Ruan recalled. After she finished speaking, she found that Ning Ning didn't speak, but stared straight at her. So she tentatively replied, "Yesterday. The time she came to this whole world." "Where does Sister Ruan live?" Ning Ning continued to ask. Ruan's heart beat faster for a moment, but she still seemed to have lost her wits and replied, "Amidst the ruins." "No wonder Sister came in as soon as she arrived," Ning Ning added after speaking, "Ruins are the entrance to all domains. Except for the central region, other regions enter the domain every night." Ruan noticed that Ning Ning referred to this place as a domain rather than a replica. It turned out that the garbage dump she was in was actually the entrance to all domains. "I don't know where the central area of the garbage dump is it her desk and chairs?" End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Daughter of the C03. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Daughter of the C.03. So how did they get in? Ruan asked. "It comes randomly, and this world will pull people into different domains at midnight, many of which have been cracked and have a lower mortality rate," Ning Ning replied. "Didn't they say that the mortality rate is fixed?" She was completely unaware of the rules of the world. Perhaps, Ning Ning did not refute. "This domain is unknown to them," Ning Ning said before lying down and looking at the ceiling. "Unknown. Has no one come in or has no one gone out?" Ruan couldn't help but ask. "Who knows?" Ning Ning replied. Ruan turned her body to look at him, looking at Ning Ning's eyebrows and eyes, as if feeling a bit depressed. She couldn't help but ask, "Ning Ning, where do you live?" "Me. I live in a dark place where I can't see my fingers when I reach out." Ning Ning closed her eyes. Ruan directly imagined a picture of Ning Ning being locked up in a small black room because she was too beautiful, and instantly felt heartbroken. It felt like the place where this child lived was even worse than her garbage dump. So she leaned against him and lay down, quickly breaking the topic. "Ning Ning, Your Majesty, she looks like a fragile glass doll, exquisite and somewhat false." Ning Ning opened her eyes and turned her head to look at Ruan. "Is that right?" For some reason, he looked like a lonely soul." "Then your eyes are quite bad," Ning Ning sneered. Ah. Ruan turned her head to look at Ning Ning, just in time to meet her. Yeah, that's an NPC who can kill people, Ning Ning said with a smile. Okay, let's be careful then. Ruan thought that this dungeon was not like a resort, but an abyss, but she did not feel any danger, only full of peace of mind. She felt that after coming here, her state was very strange, not at all like herself, but she couldn't find anything wrong. The sense of disconnection made her unwilling to speak proactively. If it weren't for Ning Ning's desire to chat, she would just want to get into bed and sleep directly. Ruan doesn't want to explore what kind of person Ning Ning is, she relies heavily on her own inner thoughts when doing things. Ning Ning, let's go to bed. I don't know when the dance party tomorrow morning will be. Ruan just wanted to ignore these things that she still couldn't understand. Okay, soft sister. Ning Ning obediently sat up and went to the bed next to her to lie down. Good night, soft and soft, Ning Ning said. Good night, Ning Ning, Ruan replied. I don't know if it was Ruan's illusion, but when they stopped talking, the surroundings fell into a deathly silence, and the air became heavy. I don't know if the people who came along have found their own dormitories. She turned off the desk lamp and pondered in her heart the clues she had obtained for the day. Just as she had some ideas, she couldn't bear the drowsiness like a tide and slowly sank into sleep. Ning Ning turned her head to look at the side face of Ruan on the other bed, and looked for a long time, until she confirmed that Ruan had been asleep for a long time before murmuring. I will protect you, soft soft. Ruan woke up and turned on the nearby desk lamp. Staying in the room for too long will completely lose the sense of time. She looked at Ning Ning on the side, thought for a moment, and decided to wait for him to wake up before going out together. I didn't expect Alice's voice to appear at the door. VIP, it's time to get ready to wash up, put on our carefully prepared dress, and go to the ball. Uro was surprised. She had dinner last night and chatted with Ning Ning for a few words before going to bed. No matter how long she slept, it should only be early morning now. Is it so early? Ning Ning sat up from the side, rubbed her eyes, and said in a soft and sticky voice, Sister Ruru, let's go wash up. Ruan felt like her heart had melted as she listened, wishing that Ning Ning could sleep a little longer. She pulled Ning Ning open the bedroom door together, and the corridor remained the same as before. The crystal on the top shone brightly, and the entire palace was like this, unable to distinguish innocence from night. Ruan looked around and saw Alice waiting for them at the end of the stairs on the side. Soon, all the doors on her side opened one by one, and everyone walked out of the room, all with a strong sense of fatigue. The closest ones are Ms. Jiang and Mr. Chiu, followed by the celebrity couple, and the farthest one is the young couple. Everyone who woke up early had some complaints, and Ruan didn't listen very attentively. She was even more curious about the connection between these people and the painting on their dormitory door. When they came down from upstairs and returned to the lobby on the first floor, they found that there were already many maids waiting for them. The maids happened to be 8 people, which seemed to correspond perfectly to them. Alright, you can take the VIP to wash up and change clothes. So the maids walked towards the crowd, and Uro pinched Ning Ning's hand, knowing that they had to separate later. In the dungeon, openly violating the NPC is clearly not a wise thing. The maids brought them into the room one by one, and Ruan and Ning Ning became the last 2. Ruan followed the maid and walked towards one side of the lobby on the first floor. She saw a gradually darkening corridor ahead, spreading all the way to the depths without an end in sight. Fortunately, soon the maid stopped at the nearby entrance, and there was still light shining on the hall. The maid opened the door and Ruan followed her in. The rooms inside are quite simple, just a few large cabinets that are adjacent to each other without any doors. The largest cabinet in the middle is adorned with many gorgeous dresses, with various gorgeous decorations on both sides. Ruan walked forward and picked up the dress from the cabinet, only to find wearable fish tails hanging under the dress. Do you also need to wear this? Ruan pointed to the fish tail and asked the maid beside her. Yes, VIP, the maid respectfully replied with her head lowered. Okay. Ruan chose a black satin long dress without any decoration among these dresses. She didn't want to stand out in the crowd and also chose a matte black fishtail. Then he took a black hairpin from a nearby cabinet and said, "That's it. You guys go out first, I'll change the clothes myself." Immediately, the maid walked out. Ruan took the clothes and placed them on a low cabinet with high heels on the side. If you have to wear a fishtail, why do you put on so many high heels? Ruan felt strange, but lowered her head to look at the fishtail. After looking for a while, she decided to put on her clothes and put on the fishtail as well. The clothes fit unexpectedly, much better than the ones she wore. After putting it on, she sat on the low cabinet and tried to put on a black fishtail. She had never put on something similar before and thought it would be very difficult, but she didn't expect the fishtail to come into contact with her skin and fit snugly against her legs. From her appearance, the tail seemed to blend in with her. Ruan looked at the fishtail that fitted her legs, which was a dark black color, but unexpectedly had a kind of absurd beauty. She immediately tried to take it off and easily took it off again. Ruan lowered her head to look at the high heels in the cabinet, then looked at the fishtail on her hand and decided to put it on. She can swim, even if this fishtail can't be taken off, it can still serve as fins, but she really can't wear 13-centimeter high heels to clear in this unfamiliar place. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The Daughter of the C04. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The Daughter of the C04. After changing her clothes, she casually twisted her hair with a hairpin and opened the door to the room. The maid stood at the door, holding a towel and said to her, "Please wipe your face." Ruan took the towel and wiped her face. Surprisingly, the towel was warm, but it came out of nowhere. After she finished wiping, the maid beside her asked, "Do you need me to put on your makeup?" "No need." Ruan didn't doubt their skills either, after all, they all wore exquisite makeup, but she always felt like they were wearing a layer of masks, and she didn't want to wear them. Yes, the maid led Ruan towards the lobby on the first floor. Ruan was not very accustomed to the fish tail and was constrained, so she could only swim slowly towards the direction of the hall. As she was about to pass by the door closest to the hall, the door opened just in time. Ruan looked into the door, and Ning Ning swam out and immediately took her hand. Ruan looked at Ning Ning, his fair upper body naked, and his lower body also had a black fish tail, with some fine lines carved on it, trembling slightly, like flowing blood vessels. He didn't have any maids by his side, and he didn't know if he had driven them away early. Ruan held his hand and silently thought. "Sister Ruru, you are very beautiful," Ning Ning said. Uro pinched his cheek and said, "Ning Ning, you're also very beautiful." Ning Ning smiled and said, "If Sister Ruru likes it, just hold on to me." She then swam towards the hall. Ruan was led forward by him, feeling increasingly familiar with this fish tail. In the center of the hall is the young couple, while others swim towards them from the opposite corridor. Ruan noticed that everyone was wearing fish tails, including the other two girls. "Thank you very much to all the distinguished guests. They have prepared quickly, and the second floor has already been arranged. Your Majesty is waiting for everyone inside." Alice and the maids walked up the stairs. Ruan followed at the end of the crowd, unable to help but observe the young couple at the forefront. I found that their faces were fine, but the ribs exposed on their upper bodies were very obvious, and their arms were also very thin, like thin bamboo that could be easily broken. They were terrifyingly thin. But when they arrived, their clothes were tightly covered, and it was unclear if they were originally so thin. Others seemed to have noticed and deliberately kept a short distance from them. They followed the maids to the party restaurant on the second floor, and when Alice opened the door, everyone was shocked. Countless semi-transparent silk and satin fell from the ceiling, leaving only a small path and the original position of the dining table, where countless glowing large crystals accumulated and formed a circle. And in the middle was the mermaid who closed her eyes and took a nap, like a god-made statue. Suddenly he opened his eyes and said, "Welcome to my ball." The maids dispersed to both sides, and Alice, who was closest, bent down and invited everyone in. Everyone could only swim towards the center of the hall, and in this instance, everyone always appeared very silent. "All right, the ball is starting, you can dance now." Junlin finished speaking and stepped back, sitting on the chair behind the silk. Everyone looked at each other, holding the hand of their companions, feeling somewhat bewildered. "Alice, let's play some music." Junlin held his cheek with one hand and gestured to Alice with the other. Yes, Alice took out a conch from her wide sleeve and blew it, and the melody flowed out of it. As the music started playing, Ruan noticed a sudden stabbing pain in her legs and was about to lower her head to check. Junlin curled his lips and said, "If you don't jump, I can't guarantee what will happen next." Ning Ning pulled Ruan's hand and began spinning in circles. When she started spinning, Ruan found that the pain in her legs had decreased significantly, only slightly pricking. Ruan spun and looked at the others, everyone with some expressions on their faces, holding each other in pairs and starting to circle together. She noticed that the professor and Ms. Jiang were holding each other at a certain distance. "Soft sister, dance seriously." Ning Ning suddenly leaned closer. Ruan put away her gaze and looked at Ning Ning. The child is so cute." Junlin squinted his eyes as he watched the people spinning around, initially feeling a bit interested, but gradually feeling bored. "Alice, call me again after the dinner starts," he instructed Alice beside him. "Yes," Alice lowered her head. "I hope everyone can dance to their heart's content, so I won't be with you anymore," Junlin said as he got up from his chair. "Please make sure to dance until before the banquet." He then disappeared. Everyone stopped one after another. "Before the banquet. How do we get to the banquet? What strange NPC is this? I don't want to spin anymore, it's causing me a headache. I don't want to turn around either." No one with mental disabilities would turn around before the dinner party. Uro didn't feel dizzy, she just stopped and felt the consequences of not dancing. Soon, the sharp pain in her legs became increasingly apparent. "It seems we can't stop, our legs will be getting more and more painful." Ning Ning pulled over Ruan and started spinning in circles. Ruan nodded in agreement and looked at the crowd, clearly aware of this. "Lin Cheng, does your leg hurt?" Mingyu asked from the side. "Pain, let's keep dancing." Lin Cheng pulled her over and comforted her in his arms. Everyone also turned around again. Everyone continued to dance, occasionally stopping a little and then starting to spin around, until something unexpected happened. "Ah!" A scream suddenly appeared. Everyone turned to one side and saw the young couple. The boy bit the girl's neck tightly, as if he had also broken her throat bone. His Adam's apple slid up and down, wolfing down her blood. The girl opened her mouth, screamed silently, and died within minutes, leaving only a skeleton. The others were all stunned by this unexpected scene, but the stabbing pain in their legs made them unable to stop, so they had to rotate and move away from the young boy. Ruan listened to the slightly nauseous voice of Ms. Jiang beside her. She could barely hold it back, but in the end, she also began to nauseous, even more violently. Her physiological tears flowed from her red eyes. "Sister Ruan, are you okay?" Ning Ning held up one hand and tried to reach out to Ruan's back, trying to help her smooth it out. "It's okay," Ruan said and retched a few more times. She just saw that the boy's bony body gradually swelled up from drinking the girl's blood, and no longer showed any traces of bones. After thinking about it, it should be because they didn't have dinner last night and danced for so long again. Is the condition for death just not having dinner? It doesn't seem like it's that simple. "Sister Ruan, look at that man, Ning Ning said as she spun around with a thoughtful expression. Ruan saw the young man cling tightly to the body he had sucked dry, selflessly spinning around. He exerted too much force, as if trying to integrate it into his own body. So much so that the body had already been broken several times by strangulation, and Sensensen's bones had broken out of his skin, yet no blood had flowed down. Ruan vomited again. Today was the first time she had seen a body, and it was still like this. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have let my sister watch it. Ning Ning quickly apologized with a crying voice. It's okay, thank Ning Ning. Ruan reached out and rubbed Ning Ning's hair, but couldn't help but feel another wave of acid reflux, causing her to bend over Ning Ning's shoulder. Ning Ning patted her. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Daughter of the C05. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Daughter of the C.05. Everyone's face was very bad, but they couldn't stop. As time passed, once they stopped, they would instantly feel intense pain, as if their legs were about to be crushed. Ruan finally calmed down and felt an increasingly obvious hunger in her body. What she couldn't accept was that Ning Ning in front of her looked like a moving delicacy. She looked at the others beside her, everyone's expressions unnatural, and some even smelled the necks of their dance partners. Everyone stay awake. Ruan couldn't help but shout. The tragedy just happened in front of us, we can't fight each other anymore. Lin Cheng shouted beside us. The others couldn't help but look at the young couple and quickly withdrew their gaze. The young man didn't know if he had heard them, so he buried his head around the girl's neck and didn't look up. The forest and bones of a girl are the best warning. Others desperately suppressed their hunger but couldn't stop. After a long, long time, there was only a deathly silence. Ruan closed her eyes and no longer looked at Ning Ning. Although hunger was piercing her body, it was not so intense that she lost control. The mechanized rotation of the body can even counteract a hint of hunger with dizziness. Lin Cheng, I can't help it anymore. Can you take a small bite, just a small bite?Mingyu looked up at Lin Cheng with red eyes. Mingyu, wake up a bit, it will be over soon. Lin Cheng shook her. When will it end? When will it end? I really can't bear it anymore. Do you love me? Do you really love me? Mingyu's emotions became more and more excited, and she asked with a sharp voice. Lin Cheng didn't know what to say for a moment. On the other side, there was no movement from Professor Chiu and Ms. Jiang. Ladies and gentlemen, you can go back to your room and rest for a while. I'm going to prepare dinner for tonight, Alice suddenly shouted to everyone. Everyone stopped, and Ruan felt the hunger subside. He was still hungry, but no longer hungry and wanted to eat randomly. After Alice left, everyone returned to their own dormitories. Ruan led Ning Ning, as always at the back of the team. In front of her was Ms. Jiang, and when she lowered her head, she could see her hands hidden behind her, all tightly pinched with bloodstains. At the forefront of the team is still the young boy holding the body tightly. After returning to the room, Yuro felt a complete relaxation. She looked at Ning Ning sitting across from her and couldn't help but ask, Ning Ning, weren't you hungry just now? At that time, she wanted to ask, but her body seemed unable to resist any trace of exhaustion. I'm hungry, but I'm not so hungry that I can't control it. It's like I haven't eaten for 2 or 3 days. Okay, their feelings are actually similar. When I looked at you, you were like a top-notch delicacy, Yuro joked. Ha ha ha, it just smells very fragrant, but it can be suppressed, Ning Ning said while lowering her eyes. That's right. Ruan lowered her head and pondered over what exactly caused her appetite to change. Ruan pondered while trying to molt off the fish tail. After touching it for a while, she couldn't even touch the edge of the fish tail. Unable to help but be surprised, she didn't have time to think anymore and quickly lowered her head to look at the skin connected to her fishtail. Sure enough, the fusion was very natural and could not be separated. Ning Ning, this fish tail. Ruan looked up and asked Ning Ning. Soft sister, I can't take it off either. Ning Ning frowned and looked at her waist. Thousands of ideas floated out of Ruan's mind. Is it a mutation? Is it assimilation? Is the strong sense of hunger caused by fish tails? What else will this fish tail bring? Dong dong, ladies and gentlemen, the dinner is ready. It was Alice's voice, but after speaking, there were no more voices. It seems that it is not mandatory to eat, but I believe no one will resist hunger and not go. When the crowd arrived on the second floor again, the gathering hall had been restored to its original appearance. Everyone looked at the piles of tattoos on the table and immediately took their seats. The young boy didn't even get to his seat when he grabbed a handful and stuffed it into his mouth. After taking a sip, I couldn't stop and frantically grabbed the food on the table. His face was bulging with food, even covering the physiological tears he shed due to facial deformities. The others seemed to be stimulated and no longer held their chopsticks, stood up and grabbed the food with their hands to eat. For a moment, the scene became extremely chaotic. Ruan looked at the tattoo, hesitating between allergies and starvation. Ning Ning didn't even move her chopsticks on the side. Fortunately, Alice walked over, carrying an unattractive cake like yesterday, with a row of maids behind her, carrying red wine. Ruan sighed and finally had something to eat. Ning Ning, like yesterday, picked herself some sashimi and then cut a large piece of cake for Ruan. She tasted it and found that it was even more delicious than last time. But in the eyes of others, there are only those tattoos, and no one chooses to touch the cake. Ruan didn't find it strange. Compared to the luxurious seafood sashimi, this cake did seem too unsuccessful. She found it strange that the young man's belly was bulging harder and harder. Also, I didn't see His Majesty until the dinner ended. After Ruan finished eating, she held her cheeks and watched Ning Ning eating seafood sashimi one by one. After taking a few bites, he picked up the towel on the table and wiped his mouth. Ruan couldn't help but rub Ning Ning's head and held him, just about to get up and leave. But I don't want to hear everyone discussing dungeons. I think so. I think we've been in this dungeon for a long time, and something like that happened again today. I hope everyone can chat together, Ms. Jiang said as she lowered her head. Ruan looked at the young boy who always interrupted everyone's conversation before, and saw that he was still busy stuffing food into his mouth, without any intention of getting in touch with anyone. Let me make a sample first. I think this instance is really strange. Since the appearance of the instance 2 years ago, Mingyu and I have also entered the instance 3 times in a row. We have been following the summaries of those big shots on the internet and have never heard of a mermaid-type instance, Lin Qing said. Yes, I have done some data collection and have never heard of any copies of mermaids, Mr. Chiu agreed. And we can't bring weapons in either, Mingyu said. Lin Qing scratched his head and added, due to the holiday brought to us by the previous instance, we spent a lot of money on purchasing many weapons during this period. So, this is very likely an unknown replica, said Ruan. Thank you Ning Ning. In such a dungeon, are you willing to share your personal skills? Ms. Jiang hesitated for a long time and said. Unexpectedly, the silence of the entire venue was achieved. Even if Ruan wanted to agree, she really didn't know what her skills were, so she could only obediently keep her mouth shut. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Daughter of the C06. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8. The Daughter of the C07. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Daughter of the C.07. Ruan is supportive of innate goodness and understands that some people have their own grievances, but she cannot refute the possibility of innate bad people in the world. When they stopped talking, the air became heavy. Ruan originally wanted to go out and take a look, but found that the door couldn't be opened at all. So Ruan had to sit back by the bed and continue chatting with Ning Ning. Fortunately, Ning Ning is a well-behaved child who answers every question. "Ning Ning, what's the outside world like?" Ruan asked, holding her cheeks. "If you want to know, I'll tell you." Ning Ning looked at her seriously. 2 years ago, the busiest city collapsed and turned into ruins on the night of the New Year. Some people went to the ruins to investigate, but those who went were mostly gone but never returned. News of missing people also kept coming from other places, until the first case of disappearance appeared online and someone shared their experiences online. Then, like mushrooms after rain, countless people began to share their experiences under that post. People finally understand what kind of earth-shattering changes have occurred in the world. The originally rapidly developing technology has been suspended by people. As information increases, they begin to refer to such events as replicas because survivors receive rewards. Rewards can be divided into 2 categories. One is to acquire or enhance personal abilities, and the other is to receive a 1-year leave. Since then, humans have been roughly divided into 2 factions. The survey faction, which accounts for 10.15% of the population, and the breeding faction, which has the largest population. The former is responsible for regularly entering the ruins, fighting against dungeons, collecting information, and sharing their experiences online after surviving. The latter, under the information brought by the former, obtains ample living space and is responsible for human reproduction. The differentiation of regions also comes from this. The area closest to the ruins is Area A, where the top investigators currently reside. From the inside out are B, C, D, and E. The first 3 districts are investigators of different levels. Zone D is more like a buffer zone, the most chaotic area, but gradually becomes the second most populous area, with both evading investigators, evading propagators, and a large number of uncontrolled individuals. In the following 6 months, many changes occurred in these areas, and what was most unexpected was that D district became the area with the best technological maintenance. Zone E is the safest area among them, home to 70% of the breeding faction. Where did the people in that ruins go? Ruan couldn't help but ask, adding, did all the people who went missing at first die in the domain? Why did it take so long for that post to appear? No one knows. No one really knows about this matter. Okay. It seems that there are still many unsolved mysteries in this world, but she has also gained a preliminary understanding and finally has the right to speak. Quiet again. Sister Ruru, should I ask you instead? Ning Ning broke the deadlock. Okay. Just wanted to be so quiet. Sister Ruru, are you doing well? It's okay. Ruan was afraid that she might look like showing off in his eyes, but as Ning Ning looked at her curiously, she couldn't help but add, they are very traditional parents, strict and gentle. They will take care of all aspects of my life and arrange everything for me. Although it has only been a few days since I came to this place, the image of my parents in the original world has faded from my memory. No matter how hard Ruan tried to think about it, there were not many details to mention. She had to give a few dry examples from last semester. She felt that what she said was extremely boring, but Ning Ning across from her listened very seriously. As long as you're doing well, I hope Sister Ruru is happy. Ruan felt comforted by the child's sticky voice again. Ning Ning had nothing else to ask. After thinking about it in bed, she had to take a book and get out of bed. I crawled into Ruan's bed. Ruan felt Ning Ning snuggle up, and her fear of silence in her heart decreased significantly. Her heart slowly calmed down. She looked at the book in Ning Ning's hand, which had an illustration of a carefree little mermaid blowing bubbles. I couldn't help but sigh, it was indeed a child. Ruan, who had calmed down, even took a peaceful nap beside Ning Ning. When Alice knocked on the door, she felt that time passed quite quickly. When she walked out of the door, she found everyone in the hallway, as if they had been pulled out of an abyss, disheartened, and even with signs of fighting on Professor Chiu and Ms. Zhang's bodies. At today's dinner, everyone was unexpectedly quiet, as if their words had already been spoken out on that day. Today, His Majesty has not yet arrived at the banquet, only Alice is waiting on the side. After someone had finished eating, she spoke up and said, "Your Majesty has run out of crystals to decorate the wedding. Could you please collect 8 different colored crystals in the next 2 days? The more, the better. The palace gate has been unlocked. Please search carefully." The crowd had just finished listening to Alice's words, and before they could do anything, the young man with a big belly had already left the restaurant. Did he go find the crystal? Mr. Chiu said confidently, and Lin Cheng and Mingyu followed closely as they left the restaurant. Ruan watched as Mr. Chiu and Ms. Jiang hurriedly walked out of the restaurant, still considering Alice's words earlier. It seemed that she did not mention the consequences of not collecting the crystals. But when she thought of Ning Ning beside her, she felt that she couldn't take any risks and would rather follow along to collect some crystals. Ruan pulled Ning Ning and also left the restaurant. Alice looked at the backs of everyone at the end, her eyes becoming increasingly empty. This crystal is much easier to find than Ruan had imagined. There are various black stones scattered around the palace, but those stones refract a ray of light in the cracks. She saw that the young man who came out first had already broken open a stone and taken out a purple crystal. He broke it open with a big bone. The later celebrity couple didn't think of a good way to break the stone, holding the stone and feeling quite melancholy. Without hesitation, Mr. Chiu walked directly to the young man and asked if he could borrow a bone. It is obvious that Lin Cheng and Mingyu have considered this idea and all agree that it is impossible to succeed, so they are standing by with their hands clasped around, intending to see his joke. Unexpectedly, the young man took out a big bone from his own clothes and threw it to Mr. Chiu. The two of them instantly changed their faces, and Lin Cheng hurriedly came to ask the young man for it. "No, you can take your own." The young man didn't even lift his head. This is the first sentence he said after the accident, his voice is hoarse and hard to hear. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Daughter of the C08. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Daughter of the C.08. Lin Cheng's face instantly darkened. He stared fixedly at the young man, but he dared not really get angry with him. After a long time, he turned his gaze to Mr. Chiu beside him. Ruan looked at this scene and felt goosebumps rising. Everyone knew what kind of bone it was, but it could still turn into such a situation. She doesn't want to stay here anymore and watch what happens afterwards. At this moment, Ning Ning pulled Ruan's hand and said, "Sister Ruan, let's not collect anymore. I want to go back." Without hesitation, Ruan held Ning Ning's hand and walked back. She doesn't have any tools to weigh her hands now, so she needs to think carefully about what kind of tool is more suitable for breaking stones, and there are still 2 days left. Obviously, there is no shortage of crystals outside. Not only Ruan thought this way, but Ms. Jiang also followed them back to the palace. But there was no communication between them. Originally, Ruan wanted to say hello to her, but was pulled away by Ning Ning. After returning to the dormitory, Ruan sat on the bed and thought for a long time about the tools for breaking stones. She was really distressed, as there were indeed no good tools by her side. When she was considering whether to search around the palace, Ning Ning opened the door and went out. She saw that Ning Ning didn't call herself, so she had no intention of following her out. In no time, Ning Ning returned with a dagger. Not only that, he no longer wore his upper body naked and put on a very loose short-sleeved shirt. "Sister Ruru, can you take a look at this?" Ning Ning held the dagger to her. When the child suddenly understood shyness and didn't ask about the clothes, Ruan reached out and took the dagger, which looked very sharp, and asked, "Where did you get it from?" "Go and ask Alice for it." "Alice? Did she give it directly to you?" Yeah, she gave it directly to me. Does she still have it? Ning Ning shook her head. Others would never have thought that they could borrow tools from the NPC who posted the task. But when Yuan thought of the other people who had just competed for the bone, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart. After moving over 30 black stones in the morning, and taking some time after dinner in the afternoons, they finally took out all these crystals completely. After Yuan felt that these should be enough for both of them to complete their tasks, she placed the dagger at the next door. I hope it can help her. The black stones outside are not very easy to open. Fortunately the dagger is still sharp, and the ones that can be taken from the crystal stones are relatively intact. She didn't want to tell everyone that she could ask Alice for tools, but she remembered Lin Cheng's attempt to snatch the bone and didn't dare to take the risk. But for some reason, Yuan always felt very weak and wanted to sleep after breaking the stones. He had to stay strong to finish those stones. Even the dinner was not very enjoyable. I just took a few bites and couldn't take any more before going back to sleep. On the 5th day of arriving at the dungeon, Yuan slept in the dormitory for a whole day, even bringing back dinner from Ning Ning's dinner party. Yuan took 2 bites and collapsed into bed. She felt that her condition was not right. Tomorrow is the 6th day, which is what Emperor Mermaid called the wedding. Taking advantage of her own strength, she shouted to Ning Ning to give her a book. Sister Ruru, which book do you want? Yuro didn't know the names of those books and thought for a moment, let's take the one with mermaids painted on it. Ning Ning brought a book from his bedside and said, for my sister. Thank you, Ning Ning. Yuan opened the book and it turned back into her textbook. Unexpectedly, the question had disappeared and turned into 2 notes, both of which read, Mino Paradox. Yuan flipped over to the back of the note, which was written with instructions for use. Status. Available for use. Effect. It can force people who believe there is no virtue to learn a virtue. Method. Tear it off and stick the note on the other person's body when using it. The other person will immediately receive a virtue. Note. The virtues gained by the other party depend on your strong desire at that moment. Yuan didn't know if this thing was useful, but she had to prepare for tomorrow, although she didn't know if she could survive tonight. So she tore it off and stuffed it into the belt of her formal dress. After completing these tasks, I feel like I have exhausted all my strength. She put down the book and turned her head to look at Ning Ning on the side, only to find him sitting on the bed. I don't really want to talk, but I still want to see Ning Ning more. Ning Ning felt her gaze and turned her body towards her. Sister Ruru, are you okay? It's okay, Sister Ruru. It'll be fine tomorrow. It's almost over. Ning Ning smiled at her and said, Sister Ruru, go to bed quickly. Yuan doesn't want to sleep. She knows she doesn't seem to live until tomorrow and just wants to take another look at this child. But for some reason, her eyelids grew heavier and heavier. Although she had slept for a long time, she still fell asleep again. Ning Ning took out her previous dagger from under her pillow, got out of bed, and revealed her wounded fish tail. The wound was soaking in water, with its edges already ulcerated and turning white. In the deepest part, even the bones inside could be seen, shining brightly. He swam to Ruan's side, lay on her bed, looked up at her sleeping, and could no longer suppress the rolling emotions in his heart. Soft and soft, I have a lot to say to you, but I can't say it. It's the constraint of the domain. Soft and soft, I don't know why you came to my domain. Soft and soft, this domain is a deadly game, a sacrifice to the gods. Soft and soft, once you come, I don't want to linger in this domain anymore. Soft and soft, I can't bear to part with you. Soft and soft, I miss you so much. Soft and soft, I really want to be by your side. Ning Ning listened to Ruan's gradually lightening breathing and knew she couldn't hold on anymore. He cut open his wrist with a dagger and pressed it against Ruan's lips. Soft and soft, I really want to be by your side. With the flow of blood, he could no longer support his body and lay on his arm. Soft, won't die anymore, soft. Ning Ning murmured and closed her eyes. His figure gradually became more and more transparent, until it finally turned into half a pearl and penetrated into the shell that Yu placed on her chest. Ruan felt like she was going to dissipate because she felt her soul overflowing. I couldn't help but think of the resurrection mentioned in the textbook, and I didn't know that it would only take effect after her death. Suddenly, she felt her throat so icy, and a cold current flowed down her throat, spreading from her body towards her whole body. This cold current seems to have condensed her scattered soul. Ruan felt that he had been pulled back to his life by this cold current. Is this the effect of resurrection? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Daughter of the C09. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.